record. Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, I'm Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting and Carly Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, and you're tuning into Bite Size Business, the live podcast and show that helps small business owners get clarity and insight to grow their business dream, which is what we've been doing over the last 5 years. So whether you're just launching or you're ready to scale or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we can use digital media and digital platforms to grow your companies and ours. So we're really glad you're here. Hi, Kylie. How are you today?
Yay, I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good, except my words are getting a little tangled this morning.
It's because we just had a day off, Jenny.
I think it might be. I think that whole afternoon of like, yeah, let's just kind of, have a day of in the middle of the week, which is so strange to have a Thursday public holiday.
It really is. I had the morning off and then I worked all afternoon and night. So it was nice. I was just on my laptop on the couch and just getting on top of a whole bunch of stuff that needed to be dealt with. So
that's amazing. Well, we did. We had a quiet day. We did a little bit of socials, and then we pretty much just spent some time with our family. So we kind of don't get that often during the week. So we thought we'd do that.
Yeah.
But today, I decided the topic today last week when we were talking about it because. And I think it's a really good day to do it, despite having the day off yesterday, is because when we're having a day off, we spend time kind of scrolling websites and looking through Insta or Facebook and having that kind of, down the rabbit hole day when you've got some spare time, where you don't often have that during the week. And I know I did that yesterday when I was sort of sitting on the couch and thinking, oh, well, let's have a look at what's new on socials. And the one thing that keeps popping up on people's socials are links to blogs. And I know you've talked about this so much in terms of the value and the power of blogs to really drive, content and drive traffic to your business. So I thought today, this is your kind of forte. Share with us, why are blogs so important?
Well, I love blogging. And I think I've always got a slant in that direction anyway, because writing was my very first love. And I went off and did a journalism diploma before I ever moved into doing a communications degree and stuff. And writing was always my thing. And I was writing for various magazines and all kinds of stuff. So I'm super aware that for some people, writing is not their jam. And so the idea of a blog is just hard. It's a slog. And so they don't look at it as something fun and something great to research and get stuck into and stuff. But I think that the really important thing to be aware of then is that blogging doesn't actually need to be crazy long stuff. It can literally be a paragraph. In fact, there's a guy who I'm just having a little look in the back end here to see.
Seth Godin does that very much and that very well.
That's
I think he does like
exactly who it is.
Yes, I love his daily blog, which he's been doing for like 14 years every single day.
Crazy, isn't it? So yeah, his are literally sometimes a sentence. That is it. So people, he becomes really well known for what he does. It comes into your inbox, or people just jump straight onto the site and look at it each day. It's a really good little way for people to start their day. And what I love about what he's doing is he's sort of deviating from just straight business, and he's actually doing inspirational thoughts in there as well. So I think that's a really cool thing, how you can really bring personality into your business. It doesn't have to be that if you if you're a funeral celebrant, for example, it just doesn't need to be funerals. You can be talking about so many different kinds of things around topics that would also relate to your audience as well.
Yeah. And I think I think that what we're demystifying here, and you've done that so beautifully, is using Seth Godin as an example, is that we often think blogs are long form. I know in my brain, it's always that long form post. If you think of LinkedIn posts, they're always generally long form, kind of multiple paragraphs that you kind of throw back to year 10 when you had to do a 200-word essay on something. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? But I love that idea of just, it's inspiration. It's whatever pops up in your head, and it doesn't have to be about business. It doesn't have to be about your primary business. It can be about something that your customers really want to hear.
Totally. So I was writing this blog post for a client yesterday that is a dance school, and they teach ballroom and Latin dancing for adults, and for kids also. But the blog post was actually titled 9 reasons why you need to start dating your partner after you've had children. Because one thing that's a really important thing that we've all got to remember after kids have come along, etc., is that we forget about our partner, and then that's how relationships can really go off track.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, having done a lot of research, that there's a lot of people looking into how do I keep my marriage on track, or how do I keep my relationship going when we're swamped and overwhelmed with not just one, but maybe 5 kids or whatever. So what do? We need to remember that we've got to go on dates. We've got to put time aside, etc. So I wrote this whole blog post about that. So 9 reasons why we need to do it. But then the next section to the blog was all about ideas for going on dates with your partner. So from things that cost money to things that cost nothing. And there was lots of, at the end, there was resources to where I'd got the information from my research so that they know it's legit. I haven't just made it up out of nowhere. There's even some stats in there about, it's for a client in New Zealand. So the stats were about what it costs to get divorced compared to what it costs to just date your partner. Really.
I love that. That's a great stat.
Put some time into it and actually, put them first sometimes, not just, I'm too tired because of our kids or whatever. So anyway, what's so good about that is that point number 1 with ideas for what you can do for your dates was go to a dance class, enroll in a class locally. It's something that's new for both of you, and you're both out of your comfort zone, but you're both having some fun. And there's other people around you, so you're not having to talk and try and avoid talking about the children, for example. Really you're just having fun together, and that's what it's all about. So of course there were other things like go on a picnic and blah, blah, blah. But the point of that blog post was it's going to get some really great traffic with people that are Googling all kinds of other things, and then they're going to find the Stance Studio website.
And I also, what I love about that is, and as you're talking about that, you've got, part 1 and part 2, so you can actually then use that blog as an email, and you've got several social posts and so many things that you slice and dice. And that's really what you share with your clients, isn't it? That blog post that you do, or that blog that you write, is the jumping off point for pretty much the content for as long as you need to, kind of, depending on how long the blog is, it might be, 4 or 5 weeks of content.
Absolutely, months and months and months of content, for example. So a client that you and I have in common, we did the lead magnet for her, and we also did a blog post all about DIY making scrunchies. So she actually sells the kits if you want to buy the whole kit to make the scrunchie, or there's a step-by-step process as a lead magnet, which is perfect because then she's collecting email addresses. So basically, whichever way you look at it, we're growing her business from this one blog post that became so many other things. That blog post, I think, was possibly, I don't know, just from the top of my head, maybe 9 months ago. We are still creating posts about that because still by far, it's her best performing blog and it's her best performing lead magnet. And it really is doing a great job of getting traffic, getting leads, all that kind of stuff. But also the clever thing is that her audience is a much older audience. But so in this instance, a DIY kit for making scrunchies, that's going to appeal to the kids. So the grandparents can make it with the kids in the holidays, or the parents that are wanting to keep their kids off the screens in the holidays can be buying the kit for their kids. They do one of them, but then there's 5 more that they can make with the kid doing it on their own. Plus it's make it with a sewing machine or hand sew it. So can you imagine that one blog post is a beautiful piece of evergreen content? It just performs over and over and over and over.
And so that's that piece, isn't it? Because we often think of a blog as a static thing. It's just something that we write, we put on our website, and we hope people will see it because it's a topic that they might like. We might include it in a newsletter that we email people and say, hey, have you seen the blog? But for most people, that's where we stop. But what you're doing is actually taking that blog and turning it into so much more. And I was on a call this week with a client in another group coaching that I do, and one of the ladies was saying, I struggle so much to make content. How do I create this content? I don't have the time. How do I do this? And the blogs are really such a great way of doing it because you're never talking about just one thing. As you've just said with the scrunchie example, it could be talking about a post around pros and cons for hand sewing or machine sewing. What colors, do your scrunchies match your clothes? What's the style? There's so many different ways that you could take that content and just take sentences or paragraphs from it, and it becomes your content. I can just imagine the reels you could create from that, of having someone, watching someone, make the scrunchie from scratch. So many ways you can use that content. So it's really, the blog is almost a source of inspiration for the rest of your content.
Absolutely. And also there's a really big trend towards retro and vintage at the moment, and particularly around toys, where them all having, and I've done a lot of research on that for another client because it was all to do with COVID. And so parents being home a lot more with their children and stuff. But anyway, scrunchies have made a comeback from the 90s. So that gives us another thing that we can tap into, which is talking about things that have made a comeback. So you can write a whole blog post just about why is that? Why are things making a comeback? What's going on? What does that even mean? And then, of course, number one example is scrunchies. Hey, we've got a DIY kit here for you. And yeah, off you go.
I love it. I love it. So really, so if you're someone who does it right, I know we can work with somebody like you who will actually work with clients and help write their blogs for them and do their full social for them. But if you're not at that stage yet and you're actually wanting to write your own blogs, how do we start doing that? How do we get people to say, okay, I want to start a blog. I want to add that content to my website or my socials. What do we do first? Where do we get that inspiration?
So I actually just ran a masterclass on exactly that. And then, so it was a full day masterclass about in this masterclass, we're going to write a blog together. So first of all, they had to research their topic. So jump into Google and just start asking questions of Google that could have anything to do with their business. So from there, once we came up with the topic, then we needed to then get started. So of course, you've got to put a hook in the first paragraph. You've got to, flesh out the body. Then you, of course, want to come up with a summary, but you also want to do some kind of call to action, like click here to read this article we wrote about, excuse me, about this, because often you'll find that your blog posts lead from one to another, or that actually you really want them to, or we're going to have a link in there to one of the products that you sell, or one of the services that you offer, or something that you book, or a free webinar or something. So you've got to make sure that there's links out, links coming in, and then links going all around your website from your blog post. Of course, you need graphics, you need bullet points, you need all the things to break it up, because I'm sure you'll agree, there's nothing more boring than being pumped about seeing something on socials with a really great graphic and a really great snippet, and then going, oh goody, I'm going to click the link and go and read the rest of that. And then you get there and go, oh, it's just a giant big page of text. Yeah. So we've really got to change that. We've got to break it up. We've got to put some cool things in there. You can add a video, you can link to your socials, you can do all kinds of different fun things. And then get people reading to the end, and then get people doing something. So that's kind of the structure that I go with, is paragraph super important, final paragraph super important. Of course, the inside needs to have some great, bullet points, proof, and you can't ever just grab things from other people's websites, stick it in, and not reference them. So that's a really important one. You generally have resources, think through it, or at the very bottom of where I've, or sources, I should say, where I've got the information from. And then off you go and be sharing it all over the place. So what I do for my own blogs, for example, is I come up with an idea, or I might see a website that makes me go, actually, I want to write a blog post around that topic that's on that website. So I'll go into the back end of my site, I'll go to the blog section, I'll add a blog post, and I'll just do a link to that page. And that's it. I just press save. That way I know I can come back to it at some point when I've got the time and actually write it. Then I've got all these other ones in the back end of my website with various stages of blog posts being written. Some of them are completely finished and they're just waiting for a graphic. Others are halfway written or whatever. But I know there's a problem for me if I sit down to write a blog post from start to finish, do the graphics, do all the things, there's a whole day gone. So I always do it in sections.
I love that tip of doing it in sections, because then you're feeling overwhelmed by having to do all this piece. And I think I reflect back on when I do my blogs, that the team tend to I'll say, can we talk about this topic? They might do some research for me, then I'll have a look at it. And then I might let it sit there for like 3 months. Paul Kelsey is like, when are you going to look at the blog? Yeah. And then we look at the blog, and because we have all that kind of piece. So by carving that up, it really does keep you engaged in the process. The one thing that I really like about the way Seth Godin does his blogs, and it's not like how I do, I have graphics on every page with us, but his is almost like an old school, a WordPress blog back in the day when you didn't really have graphics and they didn't really have all the kind of bells and whistles you now have on a website, and they're just text. And so sometimes, as you say, it's like one paragraph, it might be 100 words, sometimes it's 1,000 words, but it's always just this very simple, straightforward, almost like, a reference guide but he doesn't do the bells and whistles. So I love that you don't have to, if your style is not to have video or imagery, you don't need to have it to write a blog or to publish a blog. It's just about what your customers are looking for when they engage with you.
Absolutely. It's so true. Do you know one of our top performing blogs? So you really need to be looking at your analytics of your blogs too. And some of our blogs just haven't performed well. And I've thought they were going to be super amazing. So then instead of just going, oh, well, that was just a failure, I go, no, I actually just need to rewrite it, or I need to rejig it. I need to put some different keywords in there, for example, to drive that traffic, because I know it's actually a really good value blog. But the blog post for me, the absolute top unicorn, is a blog post that I wrote all about should you delete your old Instagram posts when you change your business? When your business evolves, it's got new branding, it's got a new look, it's got a new focus or whatever, should you delete your old stuff? It's the one that just performs. There's tens of thousands of views on that blog post, which is crazy, right? But clearly people are searching for that as a thing all the time. And I get asked that in our Facebook group all the time as well. And I do a one-on-one with a client, and they're like, they come to me because they're evolving their brand, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, okay, so I'm just getting rid of all that old stuff. And I'm like, never, never.
I love that. But what I love about that is what you've done is, and you mentioned it very quickly before when you talked about your masterclass, is that you do some research. So type in some questions to see what people are looking for. And do I delete my old Instagram posts is 100% something that exactly what someone is going to type in to Google. So if you do that, and then your blog post is the same name as what that question is, it's going to rank really well on Google. And it's also going to be the one that people click on, because there's nothing worse than like when you go to a blog and it says, oh, it's got that one sentence somewhere in the content, but it actually has no relationship to the question. So when you've got, and I hate that when I do research for clients, having to drop, clicking on a link that promises something but then doesn't deliver it is really challenging. But I love that you've got the question that somebody's asking, and then you're delivering exactly what they're looking for in that blog post. And so that really helps make that engagement. But also they go, well, I want to come back here, don't I? I want to come back and see what they're doing because they're answering my questions.
50% of my discovery calls, people have found me because of my blog posts.
That's awesome.
I often say if I've never heard of them and they're somewhere overseas or something, and I'll be like, by the way, how did you come to book this Zoom session with me? And they're like, oh, I just found you through a blog post. And then it got me reading more of your blog posts. And I was like, hey, I want to work with this person. So there you go. It really, really makes a difference. With the second best performing blog post for Hello Media, it's something equally random. And it's something like, actually this one might be the third one. It's something like, what are the right sizes for my social media graphics? Now, you know that you could get that on Canva or whatever. The issue is that Canva doesn't always update them straight away. So you'll go to make a Facebook cover and it won't fit, et cetera, et cetera. Or the Facebook cover looks like one thing on a phone and it looks like another thing on your desktop Facebook. So people get confused and they're like, oh, I've got the wrong size. Actually, all you got to do is read my blog post, which explains why that is. So what happens is that one of our team members updates that blog regularly to make sure that we've always got the most recent information there. So that's probably my next point that I just think is so important for everyone to remember is 100% you need to be updating your blogs. So like you said, Jenny, if the blog post that I was Googling for and your blog was going to answer my question, so I've clicked on it, I found it, and then it says it was from 2014. I'm going to be like, oh, that's not very current, isn't it? I better go Googling again and see if there's a more current answer. Well, chances are that the answer is still correct, but it looks old. Also, Google really likes fresh. So what we want to be doing is just refreshing and that's another one of my blog posts that performs really well, which is why you should refresh your old blog posts. And so redate them, put them back out, just tweak some words if it needs it. But if not, just put in a fresh new graphic. And you can say at the bottom, updated or first published, blah, blah, date, updated this date. And then you just keep updating all the time.
Oh, I love that idea. And I know I've heard you say that before, but my brain has never clicked on that. But how simple that is, because we've got blogs dating back to when we started the company. And a lot of that stuff, particularly we've got conversations around our origin story, conversations about, when we first started the business and watching that shift. And they would be perfect ones for us to actually go back and have a read and update and give that kind of a where are we now kind of piece in that journey. So I love that. That is definitely my takeaway, my tip for today. So if someone is wanting to start a blog, what is the, I mean, you went through the steps that you do at your masterclass. And if you haven't been to Kylie's masterclass, then you need to book a discovery call and work out how you get to those masterclasses, because they are phenomenal. We send our team to them, and we send my clients attend them because we know they're phenomenal. So what is the first thing to do though, if someone's like, I'm going to start a blog? Does it have to be on a web page? Can we do LinkedIn? What does a blog actually mean? Where does it have to be hosted?
Well, firstly, thank you for your lovely words, Jenny. That's very kind. Secondly, 100% it needs to be on your website, because the reason that we're doing blogging in the first place is to, number one, increase your web traffic to your site. Number two, helping you build that trust with customers, getting better quality leads, and you're going to get better engaged customers too. So if that blog is somewhere else, then it's not serving your website at all, whether that's products you're selling, services you're booking, a Zoom discovery call, whatever it is you're wanting people to do. So we need to always think about how are we driving traffic to our website. A blog is a brilliant way of doing that. So I think when I read LinkedIn posts that are just so long, or Facebook posts or whatever, and I'm like, that's not a caption, that's a blog. Put that over on your website. And if you just had a little excerpt from it, and it made me then want to go and read the rest of the article, that makes so much more sense to me. Yeah. So also then you're getting that traffic. And then, as I said with the blog, if it leads me to the next one and then to the next one, then you've won. You've absolutely done, or getting them to sign up to your newsletter, for example. So really, really important that we don't just have them somewhere else, like in a LinkedIn or on a Facebook, whatever, that you actually have it sitting there, yeah, ready to go with a lot of good meaty information. Yeah. Oh, so sorry. So the question was, how do you actually, where do you have it and how do you start it? So in the back end of your site, whether you're WordPress, whether you're Shopify, whether you're Wix, whatever you are, you can always just insert a blog post. You can do it, if your particular platform doesn't have it, you could literally do it as a page, and then just keep adding another page and another page under the category of blog, for example. Yep. Some people call them journal or articles or whatever you want. But the really important thing is to combine it with your website and don't have it somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that tip. And particularly because I think when I started looking at them as LinkedIn posts, because you do get really good traffic when on a LinkedIn post, and LinkedIn loves it, like Google loves it when you put posts on LinkedIn. But I did find that people were just staying on that platform. They weren't jumping off to come to the webpage. Because LinkedIn prefers you to stay on the platform. Like Facebook likes you to stay on Facebook, Insta likes you to stay on Insta. That's the purpose of those platforms. So I love that tip about making sure it's on your webpage. If you don't have a webpage, well, that's something else that both of us can help you with. But if you have a web page, making sure that content is there driving traffic to it, so you can own those leads. And it's a whole other conversation that we talk about, is how you own the leads when they're on your website, and it's actually your email address that you can then actually, engage with the customer and start to build that relationship, which you can't do as easily when it's owned by somebody else.
Jenny, that's such a good point. And I think maybe our topic for next time should be all about looking at your analytics for your blog posts. How can you understand how they're performing? Because just the same as anything you're doing, just by putting it out there and then not studying the results from it is really, probably wasting a lot of time. So yeah, let's talk about how understanding your analytics can really help guide you into what you're going to do more of and what you're going to do less of.
Yep, a great topic for next week, I think. So for those who need to learn about blogs, go to hellomedia.team and find that blog that Kylie's written about writing blogs, about repurposing content, and particularly that one about don't delete your Instagram posts, because I know that is a massive one that people need to remember, because I have so many of my clients are like, I'm starting fresh. And I'm like, no. So definitely some great blogs on your website, particularly around how to get started. So, but how do we find you between now and our next conversation?
Jump on to hellomedia.team and you can find us on all the socials through there, etc. So yeah, love to connect. Jenny, what about you? How do we find you?
Put in Google Elephant in the Room AU. That's our socials for for Facebook and Insta. That'll give you the links to our webpage, eitrconsulting.com.
Cool. Awesome, Jenni. So great to see you again. Look forward to catching up with you, same place, same time next week, and discussing how your analytics can help you know what to do more of and what to do less of.
Love that. Thanks so much for joining Bite Size Business.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Mwah. Have a great day.